Now that we've gone over some of those methods for factoring, let's solve a polynomial equation using some of those strategies. So my first equation that we are going to solve here, we'll solve by factoring 3x to the fourth plus 12x squared equals 6x to the third. My first strategy, or my first step here, is the same as when we solved our quadratic equations. We need to get our equation to equal 0. Let's start off by subtracting 6x to the third. And when I do that, I'm going to write my minus 6x to the third here so that my equation goes highest power to lowest power. And after I do that, I notice I have three terms here. I have an x to the fourth, I have an x to the third, and I have an x squared term. These terms all have something in common. I could factor out an x squared from everything, and all of my coefficients are divisible by 3. So let's factor out a 3x squared. Right now we're using that factor greatest common factor strategy. We factor 3x squared out. 3x squared times x squared gives us 3x to the fourth. 3x squared times negative 2x gives me negative 6x cubed. And 3x squared times 4 gives me 12x squared. Okay. Once I get here, I want to see if I can factor this any further. And are there any numbers that multiply to 4 and add to negative 2? No. All right, so we're in a little bit of a predicament here, I guess. So I would normally figure out when each part equals 0, and I still want to do that. I want to figure out when is x squared minus 2x plus 4 equal to 0, but this doesn't factor. So we have to think back to some of those strategies we have used to solve our quadratic equations. So our strategies from here. Once you have a quadratic equation, remember our options are to factor, which we already ruled out. We can't factor this. We could square root both sides, which we can't do because of our x term. We could complete the square. Or we could use the quadratic formula. In this situation, let's complete the square. Okay, completing our square, remember we want to see what do we want this number really to be. We really want this number to be 1, because to complete the square, we take our b value, divide it by 2, and square it. I really should draw my arrow going over here. So I want this number to be b divided by 2 squared. So I want this number to be a 1. And to make this number be a 1, I really need to subtract 3 from both sides. And by making this number a 1, we have a perfect square trinomial, x minus 1 squared. Square root both sides. X minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 3. Well, the square root of negative 3, we have the negative underneath, so we bring the I out. Add 1 to both sides, and we get x is 1 plus or minus I square root of 3. Right. Quite a bit of work here. But then we also need to see when is our other factor here, when is 3x squared equals 0? We'll divide both sides by 3. X squared is 0, so x is 0. So that part was a lot easier to deal with. So we end up with our solutions here. X is 0, and then x is 1 plus or minus I square root of 3.